It was February 20. Yeah, we're coming up on our 8-year anniversary, 800 plus episodes. It's just been an amazing ride. And thank you, each of you for listening, for sharing with your friends, for coming back.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome back, one and all, to the most listened to Appraiser podcast in the world. I'm Dustin Harris, your host of the Appraiser Coach Podcast. It's been a crazy year, hasn't it? I mean, think about it, folks. We went from a year ago being crazy busy. None of us could keep up, and it wasn't like a normal, Christmas season, if you will. Today, things are a little different. And we've seen some ups and downs, and if you talk to most appraisers, they would say downs, but a lot of appraisers are up depending on what they're doing. How has your year been? I want to talk a little bit about the year in review today, and I want to do it by highlighting the top 10 Appraiser Coach episodes that happened this year. What were the most listened to Appraiser Coach podcast episodes? First, I want to pause and remind you of our great sponsors, Alamode being one of them. Alamode, of course, is the software that I use in my own appraisal office, and you should be as well. Alamode.com is where you find out more, or 800-ALL-AMODE. All-AMODE. Is it All-AMODE or is it Alamode? Also wanted to shout out to our great friends at Working RE Magazine. Interesting thing coming, I'm just going to preface this a little bit about them coming up in the episode. Stay tuned for that. But Working RE is on the top of everything that's going on, folks, in your life, in your business, because you are an appraiser. They are Working RE Magazine, workingre.com. Well, folks, how was your year? How did you do? How are you now? How many of you are ready for 2023? I want to step back just for a little bit and talk about this year, but I want to do it in a way that I think is a little fun, and that is, what are the most listened to Appraiser Coach podcast episodes this year? So we're going from January 1 till today, and what are the top 10? We're in true Letterman fashion, we're going to start with number 10, and we're going to count backwards today, taking a brief hiatus in the middle to talk about our sponsors. But let's begin with number 10. What was the 10th most listened to episode of the Appraiser Coach? By the way, folks, we're 800 plus episodes. We've been doing this. I've been doing this since 2015, believe it or not. That is almost 7 years, coming up on our 7th year anniversary. 8-year anniversary. Is that right? It was February 20. Yeah, we're coming up on our 8-year anniversary, 800 plus episodes. It's just been an amazing ride. And thank you, each of you, for listening, for sharing with your friends, for coming back. Some people, I would think they would listen once, but they'd never come back, but you keep coming back. So thank you for that. All right, number 10 was episode number 745. And this was with our good friend. By the way, you're going to see a pattern here. This is with our good friend, Mr. Tim Anderson, the appraiser's advocate. Tim spends a lot of time helping appraisers to be safe out there, to protect themselves against the state and lawsuits and everything else. And when you find yourself on the opposite side of where you want to be, he's there to help you, the appraiser's advocate. It's Tim at theappraisersadvocate.com. But episode number 745 was things that appraisers thought they knew about USPAP. And it was actually a little bit of a series. We did this over 3 episodes, and I did not count all of the stats, but the first one, in other words, I did not add them up to get this, but the first episode that we had with Mr. Tim Anderson, number 745, was the 10th most listened to episode this year. Number 9, number 719, and this was an episode that I did on lessons learned by investing in short-term rentals. This is my experience over the last couple of years as I have been on the opposite side of the table, if you will. Appraisers spend a lot of time, valuing property for the bank, for lenders on that side of the table, but how often are we buyers or refinancers ourselves? Well, I've had an opportunity on several occasions to be on the other side of the table from that, and I've learned a lot of lessons. I've learned how things work and don't work. I've learned specifically about an appraiser in a certain state that I will never use again. If you want to hear that story, go to episode number 719, and it alludes to some other episodes, by the way, that I had experience with short-term rentals this year with appraisers. Learned a lot about running a business and just common courtesy. All right, number eight was episode number 735, and again, this is our good friend Mr. Tim Anderson. Tim, you're a very popular guy out there. We're not done yet with you. Episode number 735 was does the cost approach apply on older homes? And in that episode, I'll just give you a sneak peek. It does. All right. Tim is a big advocate of all three approaches to value. He is great at explaining why they intertwine, why one relates to another, even on older homes. If you are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, again, it's episode number 735. Does the cost approach apply on older homes? And that was number 8 on the most listened to list this year. Number 7, this is not a surprise. Lots of changes coming with regard to Fannie Mae and the way that we do things. And number 7 was episode number 727, and it was about floor plans and desktops. Specifically, what is required, what is not required. What is the difference between a sketch, for example, and a floor plan? When you do a desktop for Fannie Mae, they do require a floor plan. We went into detail as to what that looks like and what you should be aware of. Okay, so that's episode number 727, floor plans and desktops. All right, number 6, and then we'll take a break. Number 6 was episode number 729, and this was common myths spoken by agents about appraisers. Okay, so let me repeat that. Common myths spoken by agents. So these are, what do real estate agents say? What are they saying about appraisers, about appraisals? This was a fun episode. I'll tell you where this came from. Had a friend reach out to me and turn me on to a local YouTube channel. And on this local YouTube channel run by a group of agents, they pick things apart. They do a question answer. They, on a variety of different topics. But this particular episode had to do with appraisers. And folks, I'm telling you, this was full of misinformation. I mean, from top to bottom, this was publicly going out to individuals. And I'm sorry, folks. I mean, they were nice. I reached out to them. I gave them an opportunity to come on the program. Invited them on the program. They of course said no. They did not want to be on the program. Now, to their credit, we did have a back and forth about some of these mistakes, some of these myths that they were putting out there. And I don't know what to say about that. My hat tip to them because they were willing to engage, but only to a point. It basically got to the point that they basically said, well, I just don't see what your point is. This doesn't seem like that big of a deal. When the things that I was referring to and the things that they had referred to in their YouTube channel, to me, were huge. These were big deals, like things that agents just do not understand about the appraisal process. And so if you are wondering what those things are, I think it's an interesting listen, and I think that's one of the reasons it was one of the most popular episodes this year. It's episode number 729, again, common myths spoken by agents about appraisals. All right, folks, I want to pause here and remind you of a couple of great companies. One of them, of course, being Working RE Magazine. Now, folks, I know you get lots of email. I know that email can be difficult and challenging to wade through. But folks, what if you had an easy way to access information about your chosen career, about what is going on in the world with regard to appraisals? Well, guess what? It's free and it's in your inbox, and it's called Working RE Magazine. Folks, go to their website, wait about, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever it is, just wait. Go to the homepage, wait just a second. A box will pop up, ask you if you want to subscribe to their newsletter. It is free. It is easy. Put your name and your email address in there, and you will be informed about what is going on in the appraisal world. Again, it's workingre.com, workingre.com. All right, we're, of course, sponsored by a great company named Alamode. Alamode is the software of choice for me and my company. Has been forever. Before I was with True Footage, I had Appraisal Precision, and before that, I worked lightly. I never actually worked for my dad, but my dad was Harris Appraisals, and we've always used Alamode. Why? Folks, it gives you all the tools that you need to be the very best that you can possibly be. Again, it's Alamode, and you can find them at alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Good to be with you. Welcome. Here we are, folks, a new year, 2022, closing out 2023, moving forward. I wanted to look back on the year. We've had a lot of changes this year. In fact, this next episode that I'm going to bring up kind of highlights some of those changes. One of them I already highlighted, and that has to do with regards to, well, what's going on in the world, what's going on with interest rates, what's going on in the mortgage industry. And that, of course, has dramatically affected where we are. Here's what's interesting. When I look back on my business, I find that if I go back a year ago, right, that things have dropped. I mean, not significantly, but they've dropped, right? What we saw in 2020 and 2021 were absolutely crazy numbers, right? It was not even norm. I like to go back to 2019 because I think that that's a better indication of what is normal. And here's the funny thing. My little office is about where we were in 2019, like give or take, like very closely related. So we've seen a crazy thing happen. Let's say 2019 is the norm, and then 2020 was super weird, right? We all know that. That was when the pandemic started, if you've forgotten. The first part of that year, in fact, my wife and I were traveling overseas. We were in Peru in March of 2020, okay? And that's when it all kind of started happening. There was a couple people wearing masks in Peru. We literally, this is not an exaggeration, folks, we literally got on the last, not the second to the last, not one of the last, I'm talking about the last plane out of Peru to the United States. Well, it went to Mexico City. We didn't know if we would get on Mexico City or back to the U.S. That's how bad it was. When we left the United States to go to Peru, life was fairly normal. I mean, in March, there was talk of the pandemic. There was talk of this virus. There was talk of this spread, right? But between the time that it was about a 2-week stint, by the time we left the U.S. and came back, the world had changed. And we got on the last flight out of Peru to Mexico City, and then we're wondering, I mean, we were in the airport literally wondering if we were going to make it back to the U.S. Our daughter, by the way, was supposed to be on a flight the next morning out of Peru. She didn't make it. Did I mention we were on the last flight out? The only reason I even left her is because I was confident that she had a ticket and she would be on the next flight the next morning out of Peru. She couldn't get on the flight that we were on. It was completely full. Anyway, long story short, or short story long, as they say, right? The world changed in March of 2020. So when you look back at the appraisal world changed as well. Do you remember this? January, February, March, pretty normal. And then all of a sudden we were like, what is happening? When we got into especially May and June, there was talk of a major recession because of the pandemic. And I know a lot of appraisers were reaching out to me for coaching and saying, Dustin, I want to prepare myself for what we thought at that point was the inevitable, right? That somehow we would see a dramatic drop in volume because of this pandemic. Well, lo and behold, what happened? The exact opposite happened. Now, yes, we had 1004 drive-bys. We had 1004 desktops. We had these COVID exceptions, right? But the absolute opposite happened in the mortgage industry than most, myself included. I didn't know. You go back to my episodes around April, May-ish of 2020. There was a lot of unknowns back then. I'm not embarrassed about that. Nobody knew what was going to happen, right? If I had to predict, I'd say, well, yeah, we're probably going to see, probably a dramatic decline of volume coming up because of this particular situation in the world. Well, again, interest rates dropped to record lows, and as a consequence, they pushed forth the spending, the refinances, the purchases. The housing market went crazy. People were moving out of the cities. They wanted to get out of the congestion. They wanted to get out into, the number one move-in state in 2020 was Idaho. Yeah, my state. It was just a crazy, crazy time, and it was a crazy time for appraisers as well. Which brings me to episode number 5. Episode number 5 was get ready for some of Fannie Mae changes. Get ready for some Fannie Mae changes coming up. That was episode number 713, and that's when we announced that Fannie Mae was going to a standard, an ANSI standard when it came to sketching, and they also quote unquote announced that there were photos that MLS photos were allowed. Now, I say that facetiously, and if you look at the description of the episode, I put the term announcement in quotation marks because Fannie Mae's always allowed MLS photos, folks. All these things that we get after Fannie Mae for, and they won't allow us to do this, and they won't allow us to do that. They won't allow a trainee to go out and do it. Folks, that's not Fannie Mae. That's your clients. That's your clients, okay? There was no announcement. They reiterated, hey, by the way, we allow MLS photos. And, of course, the announcement on ANSI. That was episode number 713, and that was the 5th most listened to episode of the Appraiser Coach podcast this last year. Coming in at number 4 is Trusty 711, 711. And, again, Fannie Mae tops the charts here. Fannie Mae and ANSI. So when we saw ANSI roll out, Fannie and ANSI was a popular episode when we talked about what's required, what's not. I'll give you the gist of that episode, folks. Most of you were doing ANSI kind of already. There might have been a few things you needed to tweak, and I know a lot of us ran out and we got an ANSI refresher course, but most of us have been doing ANSI forever anyway, for the most part, and we kind of highlighted that in episode number 711, which was the fourth most listened to episode of the Appraiser Coach podcast in 2022. Number three was my friend, my boss, the president and CEO of True Footage, John Liss. The third most episode listened to in 2022 was an interview with Mr. John Liss, getting to know him and his background, coming from New York, a Harvard MBA, starting and now running the most popular, the biggest appraisal company in the world, and that was episode number 715. If you didn't catch that one, go back and listen to that one. Very interesting guy, very interesting situation. That, by the way, was also where I made the announcement that I had sold my company and that I had joined the ranks of True Footage. Again, the third most listened to episode on the Appraiser Coach podcast is 715 with John Liss. Number 2 was episode number 721. This is not going to come as a surprise. It seems like anytime there's a controversial subject out there, it happens to be one that gets a lot of play, right? So, and that's what we're talking about, the most listened to episodes. The second most listened to episode of 2022 is episode number 721, for those who refuse to do desktops. I don't want to spoil, yeah, I do. I'm going to spoil it for you. If you've not listened to it, I would recommend you go back and listen to it. It's an interesting episode in the sense that, I'll just cut to the chase, right? Here's the punchline. For those of you who refuse to do desktops, okay, then don't. I mean, that really is the gist of the episode. And it really stems from social media, appraisers jumping on, complaining about this. I'll never do a damn desktop in my, and they'll just rant and rave. And you know, okay. I mean, I get it. I do. I understand your arguments. But folks, this comes down to a business decision. And I guess that's where the episode went. That, you know what, for those of you who refuse to do desktops, don't. Simple as that. Which brings us to the number 1 most listened to episode of the Appraiser Coach podcast of 2022. And, sorry, Mr. Mark Skapinetz, your throne has been, you have been dethroned. Up until this year, Mark Skapinetz had the most listened to episode on the Appraiser Coach podcast. It had to do with concealed carry. And we went into detail about that a couple of years ago, and he has ridden that episode for many months. And I'm sorry, my friend, you have been dethroned. I think you'll find it interesting which episode you have been dethroned by, because it's also something that Mr. Mark Skapinetz is very heavily concerned about, involved in, shedding information, shedding light, sharing information about. It is the all-time most listened to episode of the Appraiser Coach podcast came in 2022. It was episode number 725, and the episode was Appraiser Sued for Racial Discrimination. And it was with our good friend, Mr. Isaac Peck at Working RE. See, I told you in the very beginning of this episode that I had a little secret and had a little something to share about Working RE magazine. Isaac Peck, the chief editor of Working RE magazine, was here on episode number 725 to talk to us about the lawsuit in California. Again, the title of the episode is Appraiser Sued for Racial Discrimination. You need to go back and listen to it. Excellent episode. We always enjoy having Isaac on. He was just here a couple of weeks ago, as you know, and just grateful to have him on the episode, on the program. And sorry, Mark, no longer can you say you have the most listened to episode on the Appraiser Coach podcast. That crown now passes, if you will. Please take it off your head and walk over across the corridor and place it on the head of Mr. Isaac Peck. Episode number 725, Appraiser Sued for Racial Discrimination. All right, folks, that is it. That is our year in review, the 10 most listened to episodes of the Appraiser Coach podcast. Again, thank you for a wonderful year. Thank you for being loyal listeners. Thank you for being a great part of my life. I absolutely love doing this. I do. Is it work? Sure. Do I have to sit down and schedule out time and plan these episodes and what do people want to hear? Sure. It is work that I absolutely love. In fact, I find myself recording episodes when I should be doing other things because I enjoy it so much. I hope you do too as well. Hope we have another great year coming up in 2023. Thank you again for joining us, and we will talk to you all very soon.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.